All right. All right, class, we have a lot to do and not much time to do it. So we need to get busy quickly. I hope everybody's having a great day so far. And I have to just tell you, I've been blown away by how wonderful you folks have been and treated me and made me feel comfortable at home, even in my own little quirkiness and weirdness. You've accepted me. So maybe it's because Utah is weird. I don't know what. But I feel good. I'm happy to be here. For the next hour, we're kind of going to do a lot of stuff, and I haven't usually done this with this larger group before. I usually do this like in a classroom with maybe 25 or 30 people, so we'll see how it goes. We're going to try some stuff here, and but I really am excited about this notion of creativity and the context of again, being a big buzzword. What does it mean? How do we actually do it? So that's kind of the essence of what I hope we can look at this afternoon and think about it in maybe some new ways. But to start with, we're actually going to, I need 3 volunteers to come up and give a presentation. Gentleman in the green, young lady here in the black, or in the right, yeah, you got you in the red hair that everybody wants you to be up here. So you look like you're awesome. All right. Yeah, you can get that later. Okay, it's Esther?
Yes.
We have Esther.
Brian.
We have Brian, and we have Katie. All right. So Esther, Brian, and Katie, and myself are going to be actually giving you a presentation, a 2-minute presentation. And you are going to decide what you would like us to give a presentation on. So shout out some ideas. Meerkats. Let's see Meerkats. Okay, what you're looking at here, I don't know, how many of you ever used the site called Flickr? A couple people know what I'm talking about. So, let me just explain what it is and what's going to happen here in the next 2 minutes. So, Flickr, there's a presentation format called Pechakucha. Pechakucha is a presentation format that was developed in Japan for architects. And what had happened was architects wanted to get together to share their projects. So they'd meet together in the evenings. And the problem was the first architect comes up and he talks like for an hour about all the stuff he's doing. And then by the time the next presentation, the time had been cut because they didn't put any constraints on it. So it's a constraint format. And the official format is you're going to get 20 slides. They're going to be on the screen for exactly 20 seconds. So they're 6-minute and 20-second presentations. Everybody gets the same amount of time, same number of visuals. And from there, you've probably seen talks called Ignite and other things where it's 15 seconds for 4. So then there's all kinds of variations on it. But that, in essence, is the idea of a constraint presentation. Flickr is a website that many of you probably subscribe to. It's a photo sharing site. It's the YouTube of photos. People upload their photos. My friend Alan Levine, otherwise known as Cogdog on Twitter and various places on the internet, developed this site. And what it does is it goes into Flickr and pulls out images and randomly throws them up on the screen. And you can set the timer. So we're going to do this. And I'll start, and then it's going to be me, Katie, Esther, and then Brian, and then we're going to do it again. So we're only going to do 8 slides. So each of us are going to do 2. And we're not going to go 20 seconds. We're going to go 15 seconds. So we're making a 2-minute presentation. And I'm going to type in Meerkats. Is that how you spell Meerkats? I think so. And it's going to start. And we're going to give you a presentation on Meerkats. If this, again, wireless being what it is. So it gives you just a little bit of seconds. So it's going to come up. I'll start. Then I'm going to pass it to Katie. Katie's going to try to sort of make sense of it. And then Esther's going to do the same, and Brian, as we go through our presentation on Meerkats. And as soon as the photo's done. All right. So the meerkat is a very cute, funny animal that actually lives in Africa. And while many people, this is not a meerkat, by the way. This is a friend of a meerkat.
There's lots of reasons that meerkats don't live amongst people. One of them is because of this large predator. Also because they don't like to be stared at by others. Also because...
How many of you have seen a meerkat? Really? That many? Well, they see you really well. They have really good eyes that can see in the dark. And they see night vision just like other animals that you've seen in the wild.
Okay. Believe it or not, warthogs named Pumbaa are actually not their best friends. These guys right here are their best friends. This is, I forget what his name is anyway. Yeah.
Now, an interesting fact about a meerkat is they actually grow this extremity, this out of their leg like that kind of comes up. Most people don't know that, but it's a rare breed of meerkat that attracts all kinds of other.
Other seagulls. They love seagulls. Actually, meerkats are known for mating with seagulls. Sometimes meergulls. You don't know what
This is the poster they put up in that room where we've been breeding those two. It's the color red. Thanks for it.
Big finish, Brian.
And this is the meerkat after he's been denied from being able to make seagulls. A little lonely, a little worn out, kind of tired and frustrated and wishing he had another friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank them. Thank you guys. That was so great. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
That was, okay, I've done that a few times. That was the best by far. That was, I know why you nominated her. Like that's her wheelhouse right there. That was great. Brian and Esther, just fantastic. Wow. Yeah, I'll bet. And here's the interesting thing, and this is a new feature that Alan added, is there's the actual photos that you can actually, if there was a photo you wanted to grab, you could use again. If you played it again, it would pull up new random photos. But does anybody see a way in which they might be able to use that in a classroom context? And I'm just curious for a few quick things that you thought of. I know how I'd use it.
Well, I actually went into the site while you were doing this and typed in next to the American War, social studies teacher, and it's bringing up all of these pictures. So it has like the Alamo, it has Plaza de la Reforma, it has all these places, so that I can do it as regular view with my kids.
Sure.
We've got to reference that to something in the Mexican American War.
Nice. Yes.
Well, a couple of questions, because I don't use Flickr.
Yeah.
Are there pictures on Flickr that would not be appropriate to pop up in the class?
Yes, however, he has it set to search the safe searches. I can tell you, I've done this a ton of times. I've never come, the meerkats mating one, closest thing to inappropriate. I mean, I've never seen anything that you couldn't definitely use with students.
And that was really just a sick mind. It wasn't.
Exactly. It could have been taken in a completely different direction. Yes, sir.
I would never dare use without taking pictures.
You can't, though. That's the only thing. It's random. Again, like, okay, let's, beyond that one. Other ideas of people that said, I'd use it in this context. Yes?
I'd use it as like a before a KWL chart kind of, to see what they already know about a subject.
Hey, there you go.
Just kind of talk about
Sure. I mean, I can tell you this. I used it, my daughter was teaching 9th graders at an English class, and I came in, and here's the thing that was just so remarkable about doing that with students. And we did, I can't remember what she was studying. It was a bit contextualized in terms of what they were studying, but it changed the nature of the room. Like she said, this was a couple of those sections where kids it was just like, she was like pulling teeth, but it just made people feel relaxed. It just made people feel energized. And again, the room itself here, obviously feeling that way. And again, you don't have to do it. I mean, you could change it up. One person could do it. You could do it. All kinds of ways. I've heard people talk about vocabulary examples, whatever, doing it as a review to find out, hey, how much do you know? How many sort of facts or ideas can you insert into, like if you're doing the Alamo would be a great example of a history, again, probably a lot of things, but the point of it that I think is most interesting in the context of this conversation is it's a simple way to begin to allow some creative kinds of ideas to emerge. And even if you're not the kind of kid, and not every kid's going to feel comfortable standing up here and doing that, I get that. But you kind of, as you're watching it, are engaged as well. Because how many people when you're watching it were coming up with, oh, I might have said this, or you picked up on another idea that maybe the people up here didn't pick up on at the time. So you're involved in it, hopefully maybe cheering people on as well. So again, part of what I want to share with you this afternoon is just this notion of quick kinds of things that you can do with students around this notion of creativity. So I've called it sort of 5 minutes of creativity because one of the challenges that I have is how do we do things that don't sort of take up time in a day. And again, I want to frame this by saying the context of this conversation is around creativity and the use of technology for that. And while creativity is way, way broader than I'm going to share with you today, I mean, a lot of what I want to share to you today is around the notion of representation of ideas through imagery and through visuals. That is only one small slice of what creativity is. So please understand that that's the context there. But this comes out of conversations that I have with people around, yeah, great idea, but that's going to take me 3 class periods to do, half a semester or whatever. Because I was that guy that saw really cool stuff to do with my students involve technology, and it was like always biting off way more than you could chew. And you did it once, and you never did it again. Like that was it. Something like Flickr or some of the other things I'm going to show you, what I'd like them to you consider is, how do you make those things that you can just do lots of times so that you get good at something? So that you really start to take it. So it's not just about doing something quickly. I mean, again, the folks that were up here and anybody, if we did that 3 or 4 times, it would continue to get better and you'd continue to develop new ways of approaching it. And I think that's a flawed, definitely a flawed approach, is that sometimes we do something once and then, yeah, that was really cool, but it took way too long, too much involved, and I don't know if I'd do it again. So that's what I want to challenge us today. So here's the thing, a couple of things that sort of I want to identify that are particularly barriers, I think, and why this conversation is interesting. I mean, essentially, again, I love what Albert Einstein, I got a couple of quotes by him here that says, imagination might be more important than knowledge. So, and we know that, and yet one of the barriers is that school is still so much about knowledge transmission. So it's about finding the information and knowing stuff as opposed to being able to apply it and be imaginative and creative with those ideas. And many of you probably know the whole Sir Ken Robinson thing around the notion of schools killing creativity, and we don't want that to happen. We want to find ways that they actually foster creativity, and you can't kind of have this conversation without defining what creativity is. So maybe just a second, what's your definition of creativity? Just a few people, just shout them out. Original thought, I like that. Outside, yeah. Sorry? Valuable original thought. Yeah, lots of original thoughts that aren't that interesting. Okay. Pardon me?
It can still be creative.
It's still, yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Even if it's not necessarily valuable, but it can be creative. Yeah. Other ideas? So unique. So this idea of originality comes something I haven't quite seen before. And again, obviously that's varying degrees. I mean, when you think about the world we live in now, that's essentially this remix culture, right? Where you'll see the parody videos that come out all the time. I mean, there's tons of creativity in there, and yet creativity is always something that requires influence. So they're always a derivative, right? A derivative of something else. And even if you just change one part of it, sometimes just tweaking a little bit can change the whole dynamics of things. And again, where we're at today is the fact that in your hands right now, you have a pretty creative tool, a resource to do some of the things that were not possible even 10 years ago. You couldn't even think about doing some of the, I mean, just think about video itself. You think about YouTube and the fact that you carry around in your hand a video camera, a video editor, and a publisher right in your hand. Extremely different game than what happened 10 years ago. And thinking about how do we then empower students to take that, more than just uploading a cat video or something stupid, but actually something that is original and valuable, right? So to me, that's, again, where this conversation has to go. And you can't, again, and the other thing is that I think we have in our favor is that most documents that I see right now, most school districts include the word creativity, innovation as part of this notion of 21st century learning, whatever that actually is. But it's not something now, I think, that we have to argue for. And while, yes, there's probably still some barriers in many respects, I think we have some ammunition on our side to say, actually, this creativity thing, it's not just for the art teacher anymore. It's not they do the creative thing. I teach math. There's no creativity in that. And great math teachers would argue with me right off the bat. There's tons of creativity in that. So again, I think we have that kind of working in our favor. And this is always a great question. Has technology made us more creative? And I sort of obviously hinted to the fact that yes, it is, and yet there's other people that would argue that, in fact, it's taken away creativity if you look at it from other perspectives, that we rely on this device instead of sort of thinking in ways. So it's an interesting discussion and conversation, but I'd like to focus on the side of it that says, how do we use these devices to actually foster those kinds of creative things? And it's more than just being prettying up things. And again, you know, so this is more than just, well, I can make a PowerPoint presentation and make something snazzy, or use, you know, whatever, word processor, Photoshop, I don't care what it is. I think it's beyond that. It's about when you look at that kind of work that you say, oh, that's an interesting ad that person put to that. I like the spin on that. So moving more than just being something pretty. But here's the thing I think that's really important, that I think creativity is like a muscle, and that you have to practice it. You have to practice it regularly. You can't just say, Friday afternoon is when we do creative stuff. I don't think that works. So to me, the argument is, and you know, it's interesting, if I polled this room and I asked you, are you a creative person? And we would get the range. Some people say, oh yes, I'm creative. Many of you would say you don't think you're creative. And I think that's part of a challenge too. How do we begin to foster that and develop that sense of creativity in varying degrees and in varying disciplines? That yes, we all have this ability to come up with new things, to come up with original things. Yes, some of us probably can do that easier than others, but it's also something we have to practice. I don't think it's something that's inherently saying you're a creative person and you're not. So this kind of goes back to the mindset idea that Carol Dweck talks about. And I think my argument is, how do we develop ways in which we can do this regularly, like exercise and other things that we know to be there. And again, I don't know about this whole idea of measuring creativity. You know, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. But you ask the question, does creativity need to be measured? First of all, can you measure it, and does it need to be measured? And I've kind of come to the conclusion that I think it can be. I think what I'm really interested in around this conversation is to have thoughtful discussions with students. Like, for example, the presentation that we did. What would be interesting is the follow-up conversation that if I asked Katie and Esther and Brian, what would you have done differently? That would have been a good conversation to have. How would you have helped? What would you have done differently? What did you like about what they did? And to me, that's the sort of the assessment for learning conversation that helps us think about, oh yeah, I would have done this and this and this. So I don't know if it can be measured on a rubric, on a scale. I'm not interested in that, but I think it definitely needs to be discussed and talk about, how do you make something better? So it's not just about, I created this piece of art, this idea, and we have no vocabulary or reason to talk about it. We just say, oh, that's good or that's not good. I think we have to be able to go beyond just that's good and actually have conversations with these students around, what could you add on? And again, one of the things I love is the fact that you engage the collective around, how would you have helped the four of us make our presentations better, and taking that feedback and doing something with it. Finally, I think the challenge of this too is that I think technology is still hard. And as much as it's become easier in many respects, certainly, you know, your personal devices as great examples of, it's just easier to do stuff. More people are using devices because the devices are easier. We've been using them longer. We understand how to use them better. And yet in a school context in particular, I still think it's hard, because either the wireless doesn't work, or not everybody's got the same piece of software, or this kid can't get on, so I spent 10 minutes figuring out how to help them, or whatever, right? There's a lot. We just introduced so many more variables in a school context that you don't have when you're just using your personal device by yourself. So I think we have to acknowledge the fact that it's tough. So if I'm going to say we're going to do this movie making project, we're going to do this other thing, there's a lot of things you've got to kind of keep in mind to know, can we even do that? And so I think lots of teachers just opt out, and I totally get why they do, because you know what, it's just going to be a pain in the neck, and I don't know if the payoff's worth it. And then, as like I said before, the ones that sort of do fight through, it takes way longer than they thought, it was way harder than they thought, and they're not sure that the finished product is actually that great, and so they don't do it again. So that's what I want to explore with you for the next little while, is how do we sort of change that kind of conversation. So let's hop over to the web here. Let me just get this off the screen. And I'm going to give you a Google Doc that you can have access to and do with what you want. And here's the address right here. Oh, shoot, I forgot to set that up. So it's this one right here, shareski.ca/y/YTH, making creativity happen. And I borrowed another phrase from my friend Alan Levine because he's actually, I think this is really kind of an interesting notion. He's talking about story making as opposed to storytelling. And I like his spin on it because what he's saying is storytelling sort of connotates the idea that there's this, beginning, middle, and end context, and there's a lot of structure around that, which isn't bad. But the tools today, we're making stories because we're putting pieces together and we're saying, well, does this fit? Is this anything? And I think that's the wonderful thing about the web now is we're seeing people try stuff. And not all of it takes, absolutely. But again, we have so many more resources to try to put, this whole notion of multimodal kind of learning that what if I put this image with this video and this piece of audio and that piece of text and throw this together? Is this anything, right? We're making stories. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's lousy, but again, it's the affordances that we have of these tools that make us story makers more than just storytellers. All right, so let me just kind of walk through. We're gonna do one of these together pretty quickly here. So let's look at this idea of things that you can do on your own. So this is the one I want you to kind of focus on right now. So the 6-word story. How many of you have done 6-word stories before? Okay, a few of you. So simple idea. The 6-word story actually originated with Ernest Hemingway when he was arguing that he says you can tell a story with 6 words. And people say you can't do that. You can't tell a story in 6 words. And he said, yeah. And let me see if I get the story. Some of you know the story. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. People get it right away. Like, that's a sad story. It's not. But I mean, it's the power of in that constraint. How do I tell stories and use emotion? So the 6-word story takes the idea of what if we took any 6-word story, but we actually in this case attach it to an image. So finding a powerful image. So what I'd like you to do, and we'll just see how many people can do it right now. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but probably the simplest way for us to do it right now is find an image you already have on your phone and using a tool, and you probably have others, but I don't know if you have a tool on your phone that can add, or your iPad that can add text to an image, and some of you probably already have something like that. If you don't, Fonto is probably the simplest app that I know that really that's about all it does is just allows you to add text to your phone. There's a million apps. I don't care what app you use. If you just don't have one, that's the one I would recommend. But if you have a different way of doing it, go hard, go for it. Quipio is another app that does it in a little bit more of an elegant way. It's actually stylized specifically to put text on it, so it really does kind of takes it to the next level. If you're looking to add text on the web, a site like PicMonkey or iPicky are both really good, simple, free photo editing sites that anybody can use. You don't have to sign up or anything. You just go there, put your picture on there. You can do a ton of stuff besides just adding an image. But I've often found even kids find using PowerPoint or the Paint program is a great way of doing it. If they like using PowerPoint, stick a picture in PowerPoint, use the text, put the text where you want it, and then save it as an image. Done. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get this done. And as far as finding images, PhotoPin and ComFlight are 2 places that find Creative Commons images. In other words, these are images that you have the license to use in whatever way you want because people have licensed them in that way. So what I'd love you to do is think about something you've already learned today, find a picture, and just try to keep it to 6 words. And then if you could email that photo to them58growth@photos.flickr.com, it will show up in a few seconds into our photo stream, and we can create a little bit of a photo stream of what we've learned today. So let me just kind of walk you through. I'll do one with you here, and so if I move this page and you need it, I'll come back to it in just a second. But let me just go ahead and show you how I might do one here. I'll use iPicky.com. I could do it on my no, you know what? I'll do it on my iPad instead, just because it's probably faster. So I'll put that back. You could do it that way. So you play along with me or watch, whatever you prefer. Whoops. So I go to Fonto. So and again, thinking about practical uses of this, people use this as an exit slip or whatever. So photo albums, what's in my photo stream. Here we go. Here we go. Look at, I saved all these pictures already. You guys were amazing photographers. You just tap and add text. Is it Utahs? What is it? Utahns. Sorry. People get very offended. I heard somebody outside call them Utards, and I knew that wasn't right. Okay, you got to count now. Crap. Okay. All right. So there you go. And I think, again, part of this other conversation with the 6-word story is also the idea of, you know, design, right? Like where, like, because when you see people use, and that's actually yellow on my screen, but whatever. When you see kids using something like PowerPoint, this is what I see all the time, is that's their title slide. Why? That's where it is on the default, right? They don't think about changing that. They don't think about saying, where should the text go on a picture like this? So this is a great conversation about something like white space, negative space, where it says, where would be a good place to place that image? Maybe it goes on the side. Maybe I actually put a page break in here. Go like that or something. I don't know. I could put it there. So anyways, very, very quick kind of thing. But again, this is one of these activities where in order to get good at it, you do it more than once. You have multiple times for kids to do it, and then you have conversations about, wow, that was a really lucid thought that you had there. And even kids talking about word choice. Kids that aren't great writers, this is something they can do. Everybody can come up with 6 words. What are the best 6 words? What if you put this word in front of that word? Small things. And again, adapting this kind of an activity for even young kids. What if you did this together? You're a kindergarten teacher. You had what's the 6-word story of the day that we're going to do collectively together? Or here's 6 words. Find a picture. Take a picture that would go really well with these 6 words. We'll write the story first. So again, being flexible with a format like this and using it in all kinds of ways, I think is really, really a powerful way to do it. So let me mail this one. So I'm going to see if I can remember it was them, 58 growth at photos.flickr.com. And then in your subject, this is whatever you want to put on there. And also, too, at the end of it, because probably a lot of you have like an email signature on there. Sometimes you don't have to do it this way, but sometimes it's good just to delete that and then send that, and away it goes. And that's going to be, has anybody sent one already? Anybody sent one to that address? Esther did. 2 more, a couple more. I'll go back to the actual doc and you can see. Wait. So the finished product, and I'll see if it's actually up already. It may or may not be. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It's not there yet, so I'll send it again. I'll give you the address one more time. I'll come back to that. Them 58 growth. Mail. So who's thought of an application for an activity like that, specific application? How they would use it with students. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe it doesn't work.
It's not that creative.
There you go. Yeah, over there. Brian.
I was thinking maybe even just a real brief, like with my vocabulary words or something like that. Have like a real brief, the word, and then maybe 5 words of this is what it means, and then have to take a picture of it.
Perfect. Others? Yeah, well, far side.
I'm a science teacher, and when we're doing an experiment, you could take a picture of each step in the procedure and rewrite the directions, or a 6-word description of it, anything like that for each experiment.
Sure. There's somebody else. Yeah, in the middle here.
Like, I think you could give them a word for the younger grades, give them the words, and then, like, if you have iPads for the class or whatever, then just let them go out in the playground or whatever and find
Sure. I mean, and I think that's the beautiful thing. Again, thinking about having, what's the advantage of everybody, or people having access to devices? And I know, we can have a conversation about people that don't have access, but let's face it, the numbers of people and students that have access to devices now should make us think differently about what the instructions are. When kids came to school 20 years ago, they brought pencils. That's the device they had. And we did stuff with pencils. We're good with pencils and pen. We do all kinds of utilization. Now they have this other thing that they can take these photos with. And instead of photos being relegated to the photography class or the media class, why aren't they being used in every single thing we do? And those are great examples of doing that. And this is where, again, what if we just said, we're going to, call it homework, find something tonight that just sort of helps us start a conversation. Tomorrow we're going to be learning about this. Take a picture, take a 6-word story. Again, lots of, even literacy kinds of things that are involved with that as well. All right, let me check one more time, and then we're going to go on with the rest of our lives here. And see, oh, we got a few here. So let me see if my link actually works. Please work, please work, please work. Sometimes, oh, I think it does. There it goes. All right. So the nice thing about something like Flickr too, even if you have your, wow, you guys are great. So we can go into, there's got to be a way to do this. I can't remember that off the bat. But anyways, you can kind of just walk through it in a slideshow here and just kind of walk through them. There we go. Oh, and you use the ellipse, that's a bit cheating, by the way, when you do the ... But anyways, we'll let it slide. We'll let it slide. I'm doing the math here. Are we okay with 6, or what did we do here? Was there? That's not very. Yeah. Look at that. And now here again, even a great conversation about what about that idea of the vertical writing? Does that add to it? Does that make it interesting? I think those are all really just sparks for conversations and quick ways for kids to contribute. Oh, I like that one. Fantastic. A lot of kids. That's fantastic. And I mean, here's great tools too about what if you filled up your room with posters of these things, that you just had these kind of things. Kids, every week you'd have a different theme, and you put posters up by 6-word stories that they created with you. So anyways, lots of great stuff, and that link will be there so you can go back and see the other ones that we added. And I've done some other ones around that, is where you actually sort of taking that Petcha Flickr idea, and this gets to the gentleman's question that said he wouldn't show those pictures. Well, what if you did this and then had a 15-second slideshow where they actually had to talk about their picture? I mean, that's another way of doing it, where they actually have the pictures, they create the pictures, and then build something around that. So lots of other applications, which is what I really like about so much of the media that we have today, is that we can remix it and make these kind of our own. All right, so that's definitely an activity that students do together. I just want to show you a couple more. I'm not going to go into these in detail, and we're going to kind of finish with a big project here in just a second. Another really cool, again, creative thing is a Google a Day. So these are actually lesson plans built around the idea that not every question is Googleable. That's a word, Googleable. And one thing I saw a teacher do that I thought was brilliant is they looked at their curriculum, and with their students they divided the curriculum into things that were Googleable and things that weren't. Which are the things that we could just look up right now, we don't need to spend a lot of time on, and which are the things that are actually the more complex, interesting ones? So what Google has done for you here is actually taken some of these questions, which aren't highly complex, but they're ones that you couldn't just go to Google and type in the answer and get the result. And what the challenges do is actually talk to students about how would you go about finding the answer to this question. So the creativity comes in their thinking around, well, you could search for this, or if I knew that, I could do something else. So again, a great conversation about information literacy, about critical thinking that probably doesn't have to take a long time. So this is something you could do for 5 minutes in the morning. Let's do a Google today. Let's do a Google question today. Just get some thinking going. Again, at the end of the day, you don't have to do the result. It's just about that conversation around thinking differently. And you'd be surprised at how many of your students obviously come up with really innovative approaches. Another one that is great is if you're a math teacher, this is just brilliant. Dan Meyer from California has put together 101 questions. And these 101 questions, again, this is what I love about it, is there are videos, there's images. So here's the video for today. I don't even know what this is. Doesn't have sound, anything, but doesn't have sound, but that's okay. All right, that's the one. That's it. And that's most of these will work like that. And you can see at the bottom that'll say skip it, I'm bored. So if you click skip it, I'm bored, it'll just come up with another random thing. So the great thing is this isn't about solving the problem. This is about asking a question. So what would be a question you might have on this picture? Is it alcoholic? Okay. What's the other one? How much have they saved? Can you buy it in Utah? Why is it named after? So all of these questions, and you submit these questions, and you see all of the other questions that people ask. And to me, that becomes the interesting part of it. What questions are people asking? And looking at that collective list of questions, well, that was a great question, right? Because even in this one, you know, after a few seconds, people came up with different questions. So again, and his is all kind of focusing largely on a math context, but having that conversation. And obviously for him, you know, it's something about the pricing that obviously probably captured his eye. That would be, and like somebody said, how much do you save? That kind of question. So again, a simple thing that's laid out for you, just use it at will. Or we already talked about Flickr. So something else that you can kind of do on your own that I want to point out to you really quickly, and we won't have time to do it, is the daily create. So the daily create is stemmed from a couple of different ideas. There used to be a website a couple of years ago called The Daily Shoot, and it was very specific to photography, and it would give you a simple task that you could do. Like take a picture of something from a low angle. Find something that's create an overexposed image. Just little things that anybody could do. And then again, you posted them usually to Twitter, to Flickr, or somewhere, and then you could see all of the people that actually did that assignment today. So the intent was things that you could do quickly that would help you become a better photographer by giving you these little tasks. So from there, and also through another course that was taught at the University of Mary Washington in Virginia called DS-106, I'll share that with you in a second, came up this idea of the daily create. And this is specifically to address that idea that if creativity is a muscle, we need to practice it every day. What's a task that you can do quickly? And what I like about this site too is that you can go here under Explore, and they've broken it down into types. So there's photography tasks, there's drawing tasks, audio, video, and writing tasks. And they're all pretty varied. So let me show you one. I haven't looked at one recently, but let me show you one that I did. I don't know if I can find it. Should be on my blog. Let me try here. I do these occasionally. I probably should do them more, but I just don't. But I love the fact that this is a resource that you can do. So here's the one that I did. So Alan, the guy that created Flickr, also had a hand in this. I asked him to teach my class online. He said he wouldn't do it unless I completed 3 of these. So that's a hard deal. So I had to go ahead and do it. So here's one. So it started with this. He had 3 that build on the other. One was create a visual that accompanies one of the mashed up headlines. So the headlines was Oakland Raiders welcome baby girl. So I had to create, that was the headline on this thing, right? So I created the image. So this is kind of like the 6-word story where here's the story, you create the image. So I had to go and, again, I used iPicky and made this crazy thing. That's step number 1. But then he said the next assignment was to write a story that we won the headline. So we wrote a story about the Raider Nation was trying something new, adapting, trying to get people to think of them in a more sympathetic way. So when teams came to play the Raiders, they wouldn't be so fearful. And then the Raiders, of course, would pounce. So that was essentially my little story. And then finally had me create an audio SoundCloud of the Raider baby. There's no sound.
The autumn wind is a pirate.
Anyways, I stole some stuff from NFL Films and kind of mashed this stuff together. But you get the idea of making these small little things. And what I love what teachers have been able to do with a site like the Daily Create is they use lots of these different samples. So in the writing sample, they'll pull up something. What's the color of black and white? So I don't even know what these ones are, so I'm just looking at them really quickly. But transform your most recent photo into a black and white and yet manage not to lose any of its intensity. Sorry, this was a photography one. I thought it was a writing one. So again, you get the idea. What a great resource to find quick things. So I'd really encourage you to explore this site and just cull for ones and do it however you want. Again, the intent of the site is to specifically upload it so that you can actually see what other people have done. But of course, you don't have to do that. You can just use it in your own context. But again, a great resource in finding and being able to do things really, really quickly. And what I did is actually when I have more time, and I've done this in an hour or 2 hour session, or a 2 hour session, is I actually give people these particular assignments to go out and do. And it's interesting with audio assignment, the reason that I put audio number 5, I have a little sort of bias that people are more apt to do video and photography than they are to actually capture their voice. And I think that's kind of a missing thing because I love hearing just the voice. Like I'm a big podcast listener. I listen to tons of them. And I think it's something that just having kids focus on speaking is something that we probably don't do enough of. So sometimes we skip over that one. That's why I kind of have a little bit of a penchant toward getting kids doing that one. A couple of other, these aren't necessarily quick, but they're also creative sources. DS-106 Assignment Bank, as I mentioned, this is the actual course that you could have you can take online, or so it's a similar format, but these are more involved kind of projects around creativity. So if you go to, well, let's just go visual assignments here. But one of the really fascinating ways in which this thing has been built is that people can actually submit assignments. So you can click create one. So people create an assignment and then they rate the assignment as to how difficult it was, how good it was. And in some cases, they actually create tutorials on, here's a tutorial on how to do some of the assignments. So there's a really neat aspect for all kids to get involved. So let's say you have, let's go back to the 6-word story as an example. You might have some kids who say, oh, I'm not really good with the creative side of it or whatever, but they really know their tech stuff. Hey, could you create a little tutorial for the rest of the class on how to do it? So it's a way to kind of get them involved in it. That's what they've got here, is help somebody else do this assignment. So somebody went ahead and created a tutorial. So I like, again, I think that's an interesting concept around giving lots of people a voice and an opportunity to participate as well. Another quick one here. Again, this is a fellow from Oregon named Luke Neff who's created these brilliant writing prompts. These are really, really great writing prompts. So let me just find one here. Look at this. Tell this story. Kids these days, right? He had a really cool one that said, what if you had, when you bought food, it was sold to you by the calorie? How would that change? Wasn't it interesting, right? Just think about that. Wow, yeah, McDonald's, let me think again. Like, what am I getting? Big Mac? How's that? For kids especially, because now most places post their calories. How would that change? So he has really great, again, a great resource around creativity, not so much around the 5-minute thing that I'm talking about, but a great one nonetheless. And finally, the other one, if you don't know about Big Huge Labs, a great photo site to do all kinds of really cool stuff with photos. So again, you can upload your own photos and make mosaic makers and calendars and badges and trading cards. The one that I really like is the motivator. So you've seen, that's the classic one with the motivational thing on there. And I saw a first grade teacher actually have all her kids create motivational posters on reading. So something about reading, and they all had their picture of themselves reading on it with like the word reading, and then their little tip that they went together. So really, again, just a powerful way to use that and get everybody kind of involved in that one. All right, so a big finish here. I'm going to kind of kind of get away from that. I'm not going to show you the last ones. You can have a look at some of those later. The 6 Seconds of Science project, really great. People using apps like Vine to do science in 6 seconds. How do you do that? Like, how do you actually tell those stories? So there's some other ones you can have a look at. So the one I want to finish off with is we're going to do a collaborative video. And here's how it's going to work. I'll set up something here pretty quick. But I want everybody to answer the question either on your device or on paper, whatever, and finish the sentence, what if everyone? And just finish that sentence. And again, it can be anything. What if everybody, I don't know, whatever, however you want to answer that question, don't write what if everybody on there, just finish the sentence. If you're using paper or any device, the one thing is make sure it's really, really eligible. So what's going to happen is this, is whoever wants to play, and we won't have time to do everybody, that's for sure, but whoever wants to play, I'm going to set up the camera some there. You're going to walk to the camera. I'll set it up here. You're going to hold it in front of the screen. 1, 2, you're going to kind of read it to yourself, and then you're going to walk off. And we'll do that for about 2 minutes. So I don't know, maybe 30 or so people to get walking through, and then we'll just sort of see how that goes. Let me show you an example so you sort of get the idea what I'm talking about, and then we'll go ahead and do one of these. So my goal is that we can do this in 5 minutes. So you can see some of them, you can see even by the way they're holding it, some of them is not quite as, there we go, something they could actually read. That's great. So people are clever, interesting, however you want it. So you get it. Now, again, before we actually start doing it, thinking about why would we do something like that? What would be the application around that one? I mean, you've probably seen those videos on YouTube where, you know, in a lot of cases they're sometimes very, very serious kind of things where kids holding up words and description. There's something really powerful though about having your face attached to that message. Because you could think, what would be the difference if we just put up the text of that? It just wouldn't have the same impact. Because part of it is you owning that message, but in a way that you don't have to speak it, you don't have to say anything, you're just part of that. And again, thinking about that for how would we do that with kids? I've seen staff rooms do that together, a message that they would send to kids around Thanksgiving or whatever, any kind of theme you want to. But the idea is how quickly can we actually create something and at the end say, hey, that was kind of a really creative collective thing we did together. So you go ahead, take a few minutes, get your what if everyone. I'll set up my camera here. I'm going to make my own tripod. All right, so go off this way because what we're going to do is we're going to kind of walk. How will we do this? No, we'll kind of walk right into it like this. So practice once. I won't press record yet. Practice once so you get kind of where to stand. Something like that. All right, start again. We're going to start. I'm serious. I'm going to have this done in 5 minutes. So pressing record. And the sound doesn't matter. We'll put something over top and then just exit this way. Just make sure you can read it. Good. That's dangerous but interesting. Lovely. Excellent. Pulling up the Google Doc, that works beautifully. Fantastic. Yeah, so it takes a while to get the glare out of there, right? Just different lighting. So even thinking of this as an exit skill of some sort that you wanted to have and capture that and share everybody's kind of contributions. That's just weird, but interesting at the same time. All right, you're the last person. You got one there? You've already got one? You have to go on there.
Whoa, yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's see if we can get this done. Edit this in like 2 seconds here. Here we go. Okay, so iMovie, pretty slick. We're going to go here. The first thing we're going to do is going to tap on the image. We're going to go to audio. We're going to just drain it. So there's no audio coming from that. We're going to start, we're going to add a title. Click on it again. Click video, title, opening. And just tap on that. Now the problem is I'm gonna have to make it go till, you have to split that, otherwise that title is going to be on there the whole way. Perfect. Now we're just going to add a little audio. So I'm going to go in my playlist here, and I have a soundtrack one. And let me see, I don't know what all these sound like. Sexed up isn't what you think it is. Sorry to disappoint. Oh, that's that one. What is sexed up? Oh, a little too fast. Too sad. There it is. Just take that one, hit it, hit the arrow down there, and we're done. So let's watch it. Awesome. Guys adapted nicely to the glare. That was good work. It happens. It works. There we go. You got it. They're not. I wish they were skinny jeans. I'm seeing a theme here. Nice. And I love the fact that there's different devices. No, did anybody use paper? Papers are, did you use paper? See how the paper is always tough if you don't have the right kind of marker or whatever. Let's see how it worked here. Ah, you did a great job. Beautiful. Beautiful. There we go. Look at these. Send this out. There it is. Well done, everybody. So again, my goal is just to share some things with you to think about this idea of creativity and find little ways that you can just embed it and do more of it, and thinking about, just how to empower kids and being creative with your students. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate that. Thank you. What do you want me to do with that one? Hey, is there anybody, would anybody object if I publish that to YouTube? Okay.
Did you use iMovie?
Yeah, it's iMovie on the iPad. I'll post it and share it. Thank you.